Hello, everybody, and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Kasriel Kay from Velotix, and today I have the pleasure of sitting and speaking with Justin Heller, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Data Officer of Synchrony Financial. And we're going to start off with a very deep question, and that question is, who is Justin Heller, and how did you get into data?
Wow. Okay. So as you said, I'm the Chief Data Officer at Synchrony. I've been CDO there nearing 10 years. And I've been working at the intersection of business and technology my entire career. And had gotten early on in my career fascinated with the power that metadata can help drive and automate process. And I saw the power of a strong data program in motion in terms of both enabling growth and driving productivity.
Oh, well, that's an amazing vision, and that really dovetails nicely with the next question, which is about you've been in the field of data for many years. Where would you say that there's been real growth and development? Because a spreadsheet is a spreadsheet, and the data within the numbers kind of stay the same. So where are we seeing growth? Where are we seeing the new challenges coming about, besides for obviously the sheer size of the data? Where do we see real challenges?
Yeah, well, so let's first acknowledge that the world is dealing with such an incredible rate and pace of change, and that change is accelerating every year. And the amount of information being produced and consumed as a result of that change is growing exponentially every year. And then if you take a look at that in the context of privacy laws, where individual rights around the personal information that we provide to organizations, particularly in light of what's happening with generative AI and the need for information, we've moved from, I think, hoarding information, which we have always viewed as a good thing, more information, better, to many laws embracing principles around data minimization, which is really beginning to argue for only retaining information as long as you're really required for. And that's articulated in laws, retention periods, and that we have an obligation to dispose of information, particularly if there's personally identifiable information at play. So I think that's been one of the biggest changes, coupled with that rate and pace of change and growth of information, the need to responsibly store and possibly reduce the amount of information down to what's relevant. I'll add to that. I think this is like a really important facet as we move more and more into reliance on generative AI. We know that data quality is really important as it relates to good decisions, particularly with artificial intelligence. It's hard to make good decisions if your data is very old, and the nature of the relevance of that information over time begins to get reduced. And so I think one of the greatest things that organizations and people can be doing to really complement the journey with generative AI is powering the AI off of the most relevant information, which means not retaining information forever.
Amazing, 100%, 100%. And the next question, which really this flows beautifully into, is about we've identified the biggest change. Obviously, with change comes challenge. Not to get into the legal aspects of everything, but we understand that regulatory frameworks and all of that are there for the benefit to safeguard us. But at the same time, it comes with the challenges of now we have, as you said, we have to slim down on our data. So on an operational vision speaking to the broader data community, what is your vision when it comes to, okay, I've got potentially lots of frameworks which I now need to slim down, but how do I manage to still make my data work? And I need my data to produce value. That's why we have data. So how do we balance that? What does that look like in your mind?
Well, I can get back then to your first question about my role. At the end of the day, I believe my role as the Chief Data Officer is to help an organization know what data it has and what it means and where it's located and how it got there, what's using it, who's accountable for it, how good is it? Is it safe to use? And at the end of its life cycle, that it's properly disposed of. And being able to trace that life cycle from beginning to end. So that's ultimately my role. And I think the need then operationally, given the size of the landscape, as I said, growing exponentially, is the need to drive that, let's call it cataloging inventory mechanism at scale in an automated fashion, hopefully leveraging some of the artificial intelligence. Ideally, at least my vision has always been to have this self-documenting data ecosystem that's able to keep up with the rate and pace of change without having to add hundreds of people, such that there is a centralized way, could be federated, right? But at the end of the day, a mechanism that every employee has the ability to easily find out all the answers to the questions that my role is supposed to help answer.
But and I definitely think there is definitely direction within that starting to see development in that space. But the next, when you're speaking about, so you touched on solutions and stuff like that, and something which for all the software guys out there, when you look at a solution where within the data ecosystem, what's the ROIs? What are the KPIs that Justin looks for when taking on a new tool? I know that's a very varied question, but at the end of the day, I think we can agree that data needs to drive revenue. That's at the end of the day. So when we look at a new tool, what are we trying to really? What are we basing our ROIs or our KPIs on?
Yeah, so I give a lot of coaching to my team and to others in the industry, not to focus on tools. The tool is utilitarian for a purpose of achieving a specific outcome. So the goal should be about the outcome trying to be achieved and not the tool. And to look at the outcomes and then the tools that can enable those outcomes in terms of how do you sustain. There's a lot of opportunity to build and create things or add new tools. But if that's the mindset, it overlooks what's required to really operate the tool ongoing to achieve the outcomes. There's a process-centric view of it. So that's what I try to take, is that when we look at any business problem, we look at what capabilities, people, process, data, and technology to help support that outcome. Do you have the current process that can support it? Yes or no? Does the process have to be updated? Do you have the people who can support it? Are they properly trained? Can they scale with the changes of the business? Do you have the right tools in place? Do you have the right data in place? So I look at all of these opportunities to help either protect the organization or grow an organization in the context of what does it take to build, operate, and sustain a process with people, technology, and data. That's how I look at it.
So essentially what we're saying is that we start with the headline. We start with what we want to achieve. Yes. How we achieve that, whether it's through an external tool, homegrown, employing more people, that's stage two. Stage one is what is, in old school, what is the newspaper headline going to say? What is Justin Heller going to achieve? How we achieve it
in terms of return, right? Objectives and key results, right? So the objectives are the outcome, right? The key results feed into the return, right? And so that's how I look at it. Is the headline is what are we trying to achieve and how do we know that we've achieved it from a measurable, successful point of view?
Gotcha. Now, every week, every year, every month, there are these new terms being thrown about. And if there is even any resonance with you with this term that we're hearing about now, data democratization, from what you've said in this discussion, it's definitely something which is relevant, something which is on your mind. If it is, tell us a little bit more about what that means to you. Have you seen, anything? Have you seen any initiatives like this work in the past, within your own experience or colleagues?
So let's define it, right? So I think of data democratization as the full self-service empowerment of an employee to be able to answer the questions that I led earlier with is what information do we have? What does it mean? Where can I find it? What produced it? What's using it? In order to answer any business outcome. So that's that self-servicing mechanism, rather than employees having to hunt and search and struggle and possibly even self-wrangle or self-curate data to answer a business outcome. That anyone in the organization has the ability to answer the questions that they need answered by themselves, because we've made data, the process, we've provided capabilities that put it in the palm of everyone's hands. To me, that's true data democratization. It requires a degree, though, of data acumen and data literacy in an organization. In order to be productive and be able to hit that, let's say, that vision, we have to speak the same language. This is why I think things like generative AI become very alluring, is we finally have a technology that can interact with us in the language that we use and have the responses make sense. So at the end of the day, I think that democratization is really putting the keys in everyone's hands to drive the vehicle. Now, of course, what comes to that, if you use that driving the vehicle analogy, is everyone has to be properly trained to be able to do that. And that's where data governance can come in. Data governance can act as that training or the catalyst to help empower employees, raise the acumen and literacy so that self-servicing becomes the norm. And of course, the core capabilities around, how do I look up what something means? How do I find the piece of information I'm looking for? How do I know its quality? Become really important as part of that democratization journey. My view, data governance's role is not a policing role, but a servicing adoption role of support, and to help everyone achieve the business outcomes that they're trying to achieve by giving them the keys and giving them the tools and training.
Now, with that vision of data democratization that you have, would you say that this is a vision or this understanding of what we're trying to achieve when we speak about data democratization? Is this something which is shared within the industry yet? Do you think it's spoken about enough? Do you think that on average, CDOs are managing to communicate to the rest of their stakeholders this vision and why it's valuable? Or that you think they're still facing an uphill battle when it comes to communicating such ideas or plans?
I think it varies organization to organization. At the end of the day, I think it's important to de-emphasize data management as a project and it become part of the BAU sustainable ecosystem, right? So rather than driving projects from a data management perspective, right, projects get driven from what is the core outcome and what role do data management capabilities play? What is the role in governance in achieving whatever business strategy? So I think it depends on how the leaders approach it, right? Having been in this role at the same organization for 10 years, I will say that what's resonated more is that data management is a supporting component. It's not the ends itself. It is one of the means to that ends. And that our roles as data practitioners are to help everyone else with the data. And it's not a data management project. It is part of how you do business.
Those, I think, are very, very wise words. Data management is part of how we do business. And with that, we're out of time. Justin, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for your words of wisdom. And for more insights and interviews, please visit cdomagazine.tech. Catch you next time.